season, after the Super Bowl, there is excitement for the team that won, which was the Philadelphia Eagles. And then you have a little bit of a period where a lot of change happens. And then you got free agency, that initial wave of free agency. After that is over, there's a bit of a lull period between now and the NFL draft where, yeah, you talk about prospects and you look at some of the draft boards and you do mock drafts and stuff, right? But there's other conversations that I think can be had about this team, particularly amongst players. Today we're talking about Jalen Hurts. And his career has been through a lot of ups and downs in terms of his fandom through the media, through Philly fans, even amongst me, because I've been critical of him in the past based on his performance. And after this season, after winning a Lombardi trophy, now his place in the NFL has been established. Where that is, though, remains up for debate, right? Some people believe he's overrated. Some people believe he's properly rated. Some people believe the guy can do no wrong. Jalen Hurts is a player who I think by the end of his career, when it's all said and done, is going to be the best quarterback the Philadelphia Eagles have had in their franchise's history. I think he will be that accomplished. He'll have the numbers to back it up, and his play on the field, his reputation in the league backs it up. However, there are a lot of great quarterbacks in the NFL that I believe a lot of people are going to sit here and suggest are better than him. Guys like Mahomes, guys like Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow, Justin Herbert, Matt Stafford. Some people believe Jordan Love is better than him. Some people even believe Jaden Daniels is better than Jalen Hurts. Some people think Tua. Some people think guys who could fling the ball all across the yard are better than Jalen Hurts. We're going to have a discussion about his status in the NFL. Whether or not you think he's the best or one of the worst quarterbacks or overrated, there are things you cannot deny that he has that other quarterbacks strive to have, and he has it all littered up in his resume. And we're going to talk about that in just a moment and why I believe Jalen Hurts, at least in this moment, you can argue is a top 5 quarterback at worst, and quite possibly the first or second best quarterback in the National Football League. You can argue that, and we're going to get into that in just a moment. But before we do that, we got to introduce the show. This is the Riding the Bench Eagles podcast. I'm Asif Badi, and like you, I am a Birds fan who talks about the Birds, only the Birds, and nothing but the Philadelphia Eagles. So please do us a favor here. Help us grow this channel organically by shooting this video a thumbs up, commenting your thoughts in the comment section below, and subscribing to the channel. It helps me get out to as many Eagle fans out there as much as possible on the World Wide Web. Also, check us out on audio platforms such as Apple Podcasts and Spotify, and leave us a 5-star review because it doesn't cost you a damn thing. And now that the weather is getting nicer, you're going to go outside. You're going to want to do something that entertains you on your weekly walks in the park. Choose the Riding the Bench Eagles podcast. We thank you for your support. Why is Jalen Hurts potentially the first or second best quarterback in the NFL? Now listen, I'm playing devil's advocate here. I don't believe he's the best quarterback in the NFL. I don't. I'll be objective in that front. There are things that he does that I think are better than some of the elite guys. There are traits that he has that I believe are better than most of the elite guys. But in terms of physical talent, I can't sit here and say that he's got more physical gifts than a guy like Mahomes, like Lamar, like Josh Allen, or even Joe Burrow. I won't say that because that has to factor into the equation when you're ranking quarterbacks. But what he does have, though, that is better than most of them, if not all of them, I believe he's the best decision maker in all of football. Bar none. When it comes to the run game, when it comes to passing, when it comes to pass protections, I don't think there's anybody better right now at the line of scrimmage, maybe outside of a Pat Mahomes. Maybe. And even then, that's up for debate. I think Jalen Hurts sees the protections well. He's setting them up. He makes the best decisions on the field, which bodes to us winning football games. Us meaning Philadelphia Eagles. I think he's better than that than Josh Allen, because I think Josh Allen, as talented as he is, he could be a little bit of a gunslinger when it comes to making decisions on the football field. And he'll try stuff that most quarterbacks won't. And he gets away with it because he's so physically gifted. Same with Lamar. Lamar will make decisions on the field where you're a little bit of a head, it's a little bit of a head scratcher. But you sit there and you say, the physical gifts are there, he can get away with it. The only one, in my opinion, that's comparable in decision-making is Joe Burrow. And because he doesn't have the scrambling ability that Jalen Hurts has, you have to kind of sit there and say, hey, you know what? Yeah, he might be a better decision-maker in terms of making throws down the field in Joe Burrow and more accurate. But in terms of setting up protections, setting up the play, making decisions on run plays if he has to, whether it's to ride or decide, Joe Burrow's, that's not part of Joe Burrow's game. So you got to give that a little bit of an uptick to Jalen Hurts. And then we saw what Patrick Mahomes does. You can confuse these guys. You can get to them, and you can really mess with their heads pre-snap. Jalen Hurts has the ability, like a Josh Allen or Lamar Jackson, where if the play breaks down, he could still make the right decisions and not have a wasted play on the field. And he's so good and so judicious with the football, he's not throwing interceptions, unlike some of the other guys do. So in that sense, you have to give Jalen Hurts his props, and why I believe he's better than everybody else in that front. Physical ability, he's not better than Lamar. He's not better than Mahomes. He's not better than Allen. I won't even say he's necessarily better than Joe Burrow in terms of throwing the football. Now, Jalen Hurts is no slouch at throwing the ball. The guy can make any throw on the field, in my opinion, but he's like a B-plus thrower of the ball. That's what he is. That's the reality of it. He doesn't have a lot of zip on the ball. He doesn't sit there in the pocket and can fling it down the middle of the field, in between defenders, through in between safeties and linebackers. That's not his game. But with the B-plus arm and his ability to have the best decision-making processing in the National Football League, like I said, you can argue he's top 5. You can argue he's top 2 or 3. And here's another thing that I think a lot of people are not considering. And this is going to be a little bit of a divot in the discussion here, because it's not totally about Jalen Hurts and it's more about the Eagles, but you'll see what I mean. Once again, there's controversy amongst the NFL regarding the quarterback sneak, the brotherly shove, or as the media calls it, the tush push. This is a play since 2021-2022 for the Philadelphia Eagles has been as automatic as anybody else in the NFL. And it's been ran so much by this Philadelphia Eagles unit that when you see the very formation, it deflates the opposition. And viewership and everyone in the stadium knows, hey, they're getting this first down. They're getting this touchdown. They're getting at least 1 to 2 yards on this play, no matter the circumstance. That has been established. There's a track record for it. No one can deny it. And because the play is so automatic, with this quarterback at the helm, with this unit, with this offensive line, there are teams in the NFL who, one, have tried to copy it. Teams like the Bills, teams like the Packers. Other teams in the NFL have tried to run this very play. Some have been successful, some have not been. But the NFL as a whole is suggesting a rule change to get this play out of the game. And now you have to sit there and wonder to yourself, like, hey, besides the fact that I think the rule change is bullshit, because people talk about, oh, it's not a football play. It's not aesthetically pleasing. You need to get it out of the game. Shut the hell up, okay? It's a BS argument that you have to sit there and say this is not a football play. It looks too much like rugby. When the NFL game came from rugby, you got a problem with it, okay? Boggles my mind that you want to get rid of a play that a guy like Tom Brady made a whole career out of converting short yardage plays and getting touchdowns with it on the ground with quarterback sneaks. What they are all upset about is the fact that this Philadelphia Eagles team, and particularly this quarterback in Jalen Hurts, runs this play at such an elite level. It's become so automatic. The second they line up in that position, the second they line up in that formation, you know what the results of the play is going to be. And if not that very result of converting the short yardage, it becomes what it was in the NFC title game, where Washington had to sit there and try to jump the snap 8, 9, 10 plays in a row before the NFL referee said, hey, if Washington continues with this shenanigans, we are going to award Philadelphia Eagles the 6 points. Think about how good you have to be as a player at a play, at a particular formation, design, to institute a rule change in your very sport. And I know you're looking at this and you're saying, dude, Jalen Hurts is not so good that he's instituting a rule change. I get it. But let's look at some of the rule changes that have happened in sport throughout all of history, okay? Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, one of the greatest basketball players to ever touch the basketball. They had a rule change from 1967 to 1976 where dunking was not allowed in college or in high school ball because he was so dominant in those sports. Players couldn't dunk between that time period because it was so automatic. Wilt Chamberlain in the NBA. The person who is shooting the free throw is not allowed to cross the free throw line until the ball hits the rim. Wilt Chamberlain used to, after he would shoot his free throw, would cross the free throw line, get the rebound, and put the layup back in or dunk it. So automatic at that play, they changed that rule. Hines Ward, the crackback block, whatever you want to call it. He was so devastatingly efficient at it and absolutely just a force with that play, albeit unsafe. I get it. They instituted the rule change to make that play illegal because he was that ferocious at it. That was a staple in the National Football League throughout its history. Tiger Woods, they instituted the rule change called tiger proofing. Whether it's explicit or not, hear me out. The Augusta National, after they saw Tiger Woods dominate the course in such epic fashion, they had to add more yardage, they had to add more obstacles, more hills, more trees to the course just to make it harder, just so everybody else had a fair chance so Tiger's numbers would drop. Made the course virtually, for a short period, one of the hardest courses in the PGA. To get into hockey, Martin Brodeur, forgive me for mispronouncing his name, Brodeur, Brodeur. For those of you who are French, Italian, if you can pronounce that name, kudos to you. They had goaltending rules. He was so elite with the puck and the stick in his hand, they had to institute a rule change where the goalie, the goaltender, could only handle the puck only in a finite space on the ice. He was virtually he was an extra defenseman, essentially, with his ability to handle the puck. They got rid of that rule because teams couldn't score on this defensive unit with him. George Mikan, another basketball rule change through goaltending. Players were not allowed to touch the basketball once the ball hit the rim or was above the rim, or else it would be considered goaltending. Jim Brown, in lacrosse, yes, he was a lacrosse player before football. They instituted a rule change where the player who has the ball in his lacrosse stick must keep the stick in constant motion while handling the ball. Jim Brown used to keep the stick and the ball close to his body and just run through people. And because he was such a physical freak, he would virtually score and get across the field every single time. So they instituted the rule change. And I say all those examples to bring up this. Oh, here's another one. Charles Barkley with the back down rule. You weren't allowed to back down for more than 3 to 5 seconds in an NBA game, or else you would be called for a penalty. Because Charles Barkley was so strong at his time, he would just back people down for 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 seconds until he was so close to the basket. And at that time, you couldn't necessarily double guys unless they were in the paint. And then he would just put the ball up because he was so physically strong, you couldn't control his body. Listen, he was called the round mound of rebound for a reason. I say all those rule changes to say this. Jalen Hurts, since he has been the starting quarterback for the Philadelphia Eagles, on the ground, respectfully, has had 10 rushing touchdowns in 2021, 13 in 22, 15 in 23, 14 in 24. Most of those plays, most of those rushing touchdowns have been from the QB sneak. The NFL and the NFL community, the NFLPA, whoever you want to say, all the teams in the NFL are so devastated and so demoralized by this singular play from this singular player. And again, Philadelphia works on this play every offseason. They put a lot of time into it. The leverage that it has to be, coached up and all the things that go into it. They're, again, so automatic at this very singular play. They're trying to ban it from the sport. Now, whether or not you as a fan want to say that's not Jalen Hurts, that's the Philadelphia Eagles, that they're so good at it, fine. But when was this play? When was this particular play so paramount in the NFL? It's when Jalen Hurts became the starting quarterback for the Philadelphia Eagles. And my argument is that this player is so good at the sport of scoring touchdowns, because in the end, whether it's through the air, on the ground, kick return, punt return, pick sixes, the idea of football is to score touchdowns. This guy has gotten so good at it doing this play. They want to institute a rule change so that they can't do it anymore. Name me a player in the NFL today where there is going to be, or there is attempted to have, rule changes in order to stifle the success of a team. You can't name me one. At least none that I can think of at the moment. You put that together, plus the elite resume he has, where he has 2 Super Bowl appearances that he's led the Philadelphia Eagles to in the past 3 years. He's accounted for 26 touchdowns in 2021, 35 in 2022, the year they went to the Super Bowl, 38 in 2023 in their meltdown season where he had 3,800 passing yards. And then this past year, he had 32 total touchdowns, leading his team to a Super Bowl victory, and he has a Super Bowl MVP on his resume. Other quarterbacks that have been to 2 NFC title games and have a Super Bowl MVP in the National Football League, Patrick Mahomes. That's it. No other quarterback has taken their team to the conference title game twice and has a Super Bowl MVP on their resume outside of Patrick Mahomes. Maybe Aaron Rodgers, but he's a little long in the tooth. Jared Goff has 2 conference title appearances and a Super Bowl appearance, doesn't have a victory. Same with Brock Purdy. He has 2 conference title appearances, no Super Bowl victory on his resume. Matt Stafford has the conference title and a Super Bowl MVP. Excuse me, not Super Bowl MVP. He has a Super Bowl title. But nobody has taken their team there twice and has a Super Bowl MVP on their resume outside of Patrick Mahomes. None. He's the only guy. And for all those people who say that Mahomes is better, that Lamar is better, that Josh is better, that Joe Burrow is better, Herbert, Love, you would take all those guys ahead of him. You go right ahead. Outside of Mahomes, and on a talent perspective, maybe outside of those big 4 in Lamar, Josh, Joe, and Pat, because I'm realistic in that sense, what other quarterback would you want in the National Football League? I'm not going to sit here and penalize a guy for having a front office that puts good teammates around him. We didn't do that with Brock Purdy. If anything, we looked at him and said, wow, he's a 7th-round draft pick, and he's throwing 30 touchdowns, taking his team to an NFC title game. Look at the tight window throws he makes, the air yardage, the absolute elite ability to run the offense. Jalen Hurts does the same thing. He's running the offense that the Eagles are asking him to run at an elite level. So much so, he's gotten to the Super Bowl twice in the last 3 years and has won one. And arguably outplayed Patrick Mahomes in the first Super Bowl that he was in. So everybody can miss me with the idea that Jalen Hurts is overrated. At worst, at absolute worst, he has the resume, he has the numbers, he has the reputation of being a top 5 quarterback in the National Football League. Is he the best? No, probably not. But I'll tell you what, if those 4 guys are off the board and I needed a quarterback to run my franchise and to be the leader and the face of the franchise, there are no other quarterbacks that I would take outside of Jalen Hurts. Nobody. And you cannot convince me otherwise. Hey, thank you so much for watching the Riding the Bench Eagles podcast. If you want to continue to support the channel, please hit the like and subscribe button down below. Also, check us out on Instagram and TikTok at Riding the Bench Eagles Pod. We're also on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, you name it, we're on there. Thank you so much for listening, and please join us next time here at the Riding the Bench Eagles podcast.